Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Fuente and Meerapfel present Meet the Professor. Good afternoon, good morning, hello to everyone.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
All right.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah, happy birthday Friday.
Fuente Friday. So today we have a special guest. We're having a little bit of technical problems, but I think Jeremiah can pull his magic. And we're going to have one of the last living legends, a man that has probably more history than anybody in our industry. And a close friend of mine, he was a very close friend, because we've been talking about this with Jeremiah's grandfather. That's a long history there. And of course, El Papo del Humo, in him go, and Don Carlos, way back in history. So Jeremiah, let's see if we can pull Uncle Benji in.
I'd love to pull Uncle Benji in, but unfortunately, I do not see him in the attendees, Professor. So you're going to have to work your magic with him on your WhatsApp. Make sure that he logs in, and we will pull him into the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a first. We have a guest of honor, except the guest of honor is not with us, and that's okay. We're going to figure this out. In the meantime, let's ask Carlito to give us a little anecdote. Carlito.
How you doing, my brothers? Now we're here. We're back. I'm excited. We're slowly coming back into the factory, and we started with the packing room very slowly. So I feel really good to be back walking through the floors of the factory and seeing so many people. Even though we got, let's say, about 70% of the people have showed up so far, but it's the very beginning, and I hear everybody's well, so that's very rewarding. And I was looking forward to this day, still am. This is a big day for me, because to be able to share an hour with Benjamin Menendez is such a huge honor, and he is a living legend, and he is the last of his breed, and I'm just waiting to hear all the stories. I've heard many before, but you never get tired of hearing him. He's just an amazing man. As I said the other day, not only his knowledge with tobacco, cigars, his history, his experiences, but he's one of the sweetest, kindest gentlemen that I've ever met in my life. Just a wonderful human being all around. So hopefully we could get him patched in, and we could get the show going.
I agree with you. Let's give the professor some time to talk to him and to walk him through. I suppose it's not very easy. It's there's some technical difficulties sometimes. You gotta be able to press those different links, and the technology sometimes gets confusing. I would imagine.
Oh, we were all thrown in quarantine together, at least.
Exactly. Hey, Carlito.
But isn't it amazing? We're all over the world, Switzerland, all over Europe, Eastern Europe, the Caribbean, the Dominican Republic. And here's someone in the heart and soul of Miami. And they don't have their things together down there.
This morning was
blame the governor.
Blame the governor. Yeah. So this morning I was very fortunate to have been invited onto a beautiful whatever you call it, Instagram live, whatever it's called, with Australia. And the gentleman over there, there's an enormous time difference. I think with Belgium, it must have been 8 hours or 10 hours. So with the US, what is it, 15, 18 hours, something ridiculous. It's on the other side of the world.
Like the opposite.
Exactly, it's the opposite. And they were asking all these questions. And one of the questions was, what makes the Fuente factory so special? Carlito, it was comic, because I just didn't know where to start. I looked at the guy and I said, okay, do I have an hour, or do I have like a month? Because it's very complicated, but you walk into the factory, before you even walk in, there's special stuff going on. And then you put your first foot in there. And, for those who aren't very close to Carlito, you need to understand that I've never seen such a perfectionist in my entire life. Every single floor panel, every single tile, everything has to, it just comes out of this man's mind. And when you have to explain from the beginning of the factory to the second that you walk out, it was funny. It was very,
we
funny.
were fortunate. We had a guest from Australia that came to visit us in February, or the very first days of March, actually. And one of the last, actually, it was the last group of visitors that we had here in the Dominican Republic. And a fantastic gentleman, a really great guy, real passionate with cigars. I know that he has some really, really old cigars that he had saved or located. And he gave me a couple, double Coronas. And, it reminded me of your father when he had those boxes of punch, those double Coronas and everything. And I told him, I said, well, I haven't smoked one of these cigars in a lifetime practically. So, he was very, very generous. And I'm sure, man, if he was on the seminar this morning, I'm sure he explained some of his experiences.
Yeah, no, they were gentlemen, and it was so much fun. And then when I finally managed to kind of like squeeze in the factory experience in a few seconds, then they asked me about the farm, and then I just cracked up. That was the end of that. I mean, because once you start having to go through the whole story of the farm, and then everything that stems from it, the foundation, the children's fund, everything that's happening is just so much. And when you realize that all of this has happened in, was it 1984 you started in the Dominican?
In the Dominican Republic, 1980.
1980, yeah. So you're talking 40 years, exactly 40
years already. It's incredible. I was a little boy. Well, I say little boy. I was in my early 20s when I came here. So
listen, when my father tells me what you and him were doing, you couldn't have been such a little boy, Carlito.
Well, you know what, Jeremiah? I'm glad we did it because I couldn't do it again today.
Guys, Uncle Benji, I don't know. He's been Zooming, having with all his friends but I don't know. So I think we're going to have to bring him back on Tuesday for sure.
Professor,
but before
do you have his WhatsApp? If you send him just the regular logon, so the one that all the attendees use. Let's see here. You have the one that you post on Facebook? Hold on.
But you know what it is, Jeremiah? It's already, we're 15 minutes into the show. And I mean, an hour and 10 minutes is not enough. I mean, to be honest, I know people are waiting for this, and he really wants to do this, but if we send it to him with WhatsApp, I don't think he's very good at that either. So we're gonna, during the weekend, you and me are gonna have to figure out this Zoom thing with him because he really wants to do it. And
all right, guys.
I think it's worthwhile.
So listen to this. Make sure you send.
But I suggest Benjamin Menendez is too important to me. I'm going to have a request. If it can't be, I want it to be on Friday. Friday's a special day for me.
Well, let's do it next Friday then.
I would love to have him because that's when the superstars should be on. And I would always want to have that memory that he was on a Fuente Friday on the show of Meet the Professor. That would be huge. And we could, hopefully from here to next Friday, we can figure this out.
All right. Melanie, do me a favor. Make sure you send a bobblehead to Benji because Benji just nailed the professor right now.
Awesome. I will.
Yeah, I agree with Carlito. Let's do it for next Friday. And to be honest, it's worthwhile because I think Benji's one guy that we're going to, Carlito and I talked about this, and also Jeremiah. I think just talking about the Cuba days and then the days after Cuba. And when he went to Canary Islands, and he had a great story about your grandfather, Jeremiah, I think it's worthwhile. I agree with El Papo del Humo. We should do it next Friday. And we're going to see how Uncle Benji could get this thing done. And I'll call him as soon as the show is over.
Aside from all the history and everything and all the stories that Benji's going to be able to share, I mean, this is going to be the Benjamin Menendez show because An hour is not enough time for him to speak. I mean, here's a man that has experience with working every type of tobacco, who's an expert in Connecticut shade, who's an expert in Cameroon tobacco, you know, who was using Cameroon tobacco, in the very beginning, you know, and, you know, back in the Canary Islands and, you know, Havana tobacco and Havana wrappers, you know, with, you know, the greatest company, A. Chapman and Monte Cristo, and, you know, with a long history.
Por la Rañaga.
Por la Rañaga also, of course. He has great brands and, you know, with a great long tradition. I mean, this is history. So I really would look forward to next Friday so he can have a whole hour to share with us and be able to reminisce, because I know that how important this is for Benji also, because Benji loves to tell stories and he loves to share his life. And he's just he's a natural born mentor and a natural born teacher. He just loves to teach and share all the great things that he's experienced throughout his life.
Well, we can't wait. And as long as you don't talk about my grandfather, because every time somebody does, I get into trouble.
Yes.
All right, Melanie, Rich is asking if you can drive to Miami and set Benji up for next Friday. How's that?
I could do that. That's very possible. Yes.
All right, carefully, because you got an echo going on there, Melanie. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show going. Professor, let's wing this. What would you like, or what would you propose to profess today? And
Okay,
no,
so
not about Jasper.
Listen, I mean, we're going through tough times, and like Carlito says, there's so much history. And I was just reading today on Cigar Aficionado, just going back on all the things, you know, to keep up some details that you forget about that. And, you know, like I told Carlito, I told you, when I was living in Miami, every month and a half, I would go there with a friend of mine, bring him some cigars, and just let him talk and mention people that I had heard of, but I didn't really know that much about him. And one of the great things, and I think Carlito knew Alphonse Meyer very well, is that Alphonse Meyer and Benji, even though they worked together, they were like dogs and cats. And I asked Benji one time, because I only met Alphonse once, did he really know as much as he bragged about tobacco? And he said yes, because Alphonse, which I did not know, spent a lot of time in Cuba. And even though I think I met Alphonse twice, and I know for sure your grandfather knew him, and Carlito and Don Carlos knew him, it seems that he really, he knew a lot about tobacco, because Benji said that he knew about tobacco.
Alphonse Meyer was an incredible tobacco man. I was fortunate through the Meerapfels, through Heller and Richard, to spend a lot of time with Alphonse, and every year in the Inscription in Paris, when we used to go for the Cameroon wrapper. And he had a little booklet he always had with him. He used to take it out. He knew every farm in Cuba back to the 60s. I mean, the 50s, every farm, and he had notes on every farm, on the taste, on the production. Now, he was an incredible man. And when Alphonse was speaking, he wouldn't let anyone else speak. You're absolutely right. He had a powerful personality, and he was the only one that knew. No one else knew anything. It was only Alphonse Meyer. And he was always very good to me and everything. Again, like a mentor, a professor and everything, because being younger, they all took me in. So I was very fortunate to have those memories with Alphonse, his beautiful wife. You know, they were just great people and everything. But Alphonse, I remember Alphonse with that cigar. You know, you talk about swabs a day and everything. He used to have that cigar, I think, all the way to the back of his throat, you know, chewing on it. But he was, amazing man. I never forget the day he told me, hey, you use that stuff that you use as wrappers, that's binder, that broadleaf shit. We don't use that. We use the real stuff. We use Mexican Andres. He was always busting balls and always trying to get you going, to get you in an argument with him somehow, you know. And yeah, I got great memories, Alphonse, and no one will have more memories than Benjamin, of course. Benji would have so many wonderful memories of Alphonse, everything. An amazing man, and a very, very important man for all the years with Mr. Coleman. But he was a tobacco man, and yeah. A lot of people don't know about Alphonse Meyer, but us in the industry that have been a long time, we have a lot of respect for him. Look at Jeremiah's laughing because he knows.
Alphonse Meyer is the reason I'm so fucked up today. You know, you have to put things back into perspective. I was growing up. I must have been only a few years old. And here comes Alphonse Meyer. He spends half of his life sitting in my parents' living room, like Carlito says, chewing on his tobacco, spitting on my mother's carpet, you know, yelling insanities from morning to night. The guy never went to sleep, never. So my father obviously loved the guy. And they were just drinking and smoking and swearing, drinking and smoking and swearing. And then people wonder why I get so messed up. You don't want to leave a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old in an environment like that.
Benji used to tell me that him and Alphonse Myers would have discussions that was almost like Ali and Fraser, you know, in the Thriller of Manila. It was because Alphonse, from what I've heard, and people, like I said, I'm not going to brag that I knew him. I met him a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 minutes talking with him, but he considered himself bigger than life.
I can tell you stories, but I won't. I won't do it. I won't do it on air because, you know, Benoit's Baked is nothing next to the shit that Alphonse used to do. I can tell you.
But he did spend, and it's true, he did spend a lot of time in Cuba. And he was one of the first people who evaluated, from what I've heard, tobaccos that were non-Cuban, like from Nicaragua, from Honduras, from Mexico. I think, and Benji could affirm this, that he had a lot to do with Macanudo using Mexican binder on that. Probably Carlito knows a little bit more about that because he's older than me, Carlito, and remembers those things. And but Alphonse, from what I've heard, and there's a great story the Cigar Aficionado wrote about him, and I encourage people to read it, where he has a description, how he describes different tobaccos. That's really, really crazy. If you read it, I read it every couple of years when I just want to have a laugh, because the way he describes tobacco is, you can't even say it here on this show.
You know, I get, that's the sign of a real tobacco man. You know, we had our own description for tobacco. It was either great or it was shit. It was nothing in between.
Exactly. Refresh my memory. He used to smoke the Jamaican, no?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Alphonse Meyer, his favorite cigar was Canaria de Oro.
That's right. That's right. My God, Canaria de Oro. It was in a little green and white box, no?
Pretty sure. Yeah, it was a very good looking box, a beautiful box. Canaria de Oro.
My goodness, that's going back a long.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was Sumatra wrappers, Sumatra, Mexico.
And when he left General, from what I understand, he even made a batch of cigars at General Cigars. I think he was going to sell them, and then I don't know what happened. He gave out to some friends. I've heard stories about that, but I saw a note on the screen from George Brightman that George says, you nailed it, but the color was yellow and white.
Yellow and white.
Carlito, it was a Mexican.
Yellow and white. Hey, just ask the Pope. If you have a question or something that no one knows, just call the Pope.
Ask the Pope.
Here, let me. The Pope, and the Pope has the answer.
Let me read it.
Listen to what George said.
Read this. Agreed. Go, Professor. What is it? What is George saying?
No, George said, yeah, agreed. And he also said what Carlito said, that he thought it was a Sumatra Mexican wrapper.
No, read what's above. He says, no one really had discussions with Alphonse. He was like a radio blasting away, only one way.
That's
But we got to love him for who he was, man. He was an incredible man, and I miss Alphonse. Everybody, those are, you know, in our industry, there were certain characters, and he was one of those larger than life characters.
Oh yeah.
You know, when he spoke, he wouldn't allow anyone else to speak. I mean, he knew it all, and his way, it was his way or no way. You know, it was the only way. But that was one of the, you know, special traits about him. He was a very, very proud man, hardworking, a real tobacco man. He loved tobacco. He lived tobacco, I would say 24 hours a day, man. I mean, he was a real tobacco man. So you know, I have nothing but fond memories of Alphonse. And every time he says how full of crap I was, I kind of erase it from my memory. So I just want to remember the good, because we've had a few of our little arguments also.
Yeah, I could imagine. You know who's on Facebook, and when I made the post about your dad, and I saw you answered him, and he is a true gentleman, a good friend of Benji. He was a good friend of Don Carlos, and I know he was very close to you and your sister. Is Sherwin. Sherwin is one of the guys.
Uncle Sherwin.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Every time I see him, is it your birthday today? Because coincidentally, whenever there was a show, he was always celebrating a birthday. Sherwin Seltzer is another one of those persons that totally different than Alphonse, all the opposite. He was probably one of the most loved and respected salesmen.
And humble.
Very humble, yeah. Listen, if he wasn't humble, he wouldn't be loved as much, you know? He's down to earth. He's a real sweetheart of a man. And I was so happy when I saw him post. And when I saw that, I had to answer him and everything. And then I looked at his photo and saw him with his wife. And I remember them always together at all the events and everything. And, you know, he worked for a big, first was Viazón y Compañía under Danny Blumenthal. And, you know, Frank and everything, and, you know, and vicious competitors in every way, the way it should be out in the market. But face to face, he was a sweetheart. He still is. I mean, every time, man, the kiss on the cheek, you know, there was a certain respect and love. I mean, I know that Robert Levin, you know, Robbie loved him. Everybody, you know, everybody that knew him, even his competitors, they respect and love him. So I was so happy to see his name. I haven't seen him a long time, and to see him posting and everything, it gave me such a warm feeling to know he's doing well. And when I saw his photo, man, it brought so much warmth to my heart, man. He's a great guy. I hope he's listening, and you know, he's sitting back and smiling, because he's one of those persons that's loved by everybody. We could ask Benji some questions about him also. I mean, there's so many people, Jose, when you start thinking about it, of the real greats, you know, the Bob Lilienfield, sales manager. These were very, very special people.
I'm gonna tell you a character.
And we're not even gonna go into the Colemans with Benji, because then, you know, we can't do this in an hour, you know. Benji could write lifetime and lifetime and lifetime of volumes and volumes of books of the people that he spent his career with and everything. It's just amazing.
You know who's a character? I only met him, I started meeting him in '99, and at all the TAAs, I was always sit down with him, which a man did a lot for the industry. Sal Fontana.
Absolutely, Sal, Uncle Sal. I remember, I'm going to tell you a story. Of course, George is on, George Brightman. He would remember Fred Zanaboni. Sal and Fred Zanaboni. So Fred Zanaboni was my mentor. I mean, a lot of things that I do today, and I've learned as far as, you know, in sales and respecting the brick and mortar, the family business, and about people, you know, learning about people. I owe it to Fred Zanaboni. The Fuente brand was sold in the Cuban neighborhoods, you know, before Fred Zanaboni. It was sold in Miami. We had a very big business in Miami. We had a big business in Tampa, New Jersey, New York, but it was in the, you know, the Hispanic Cuban neighborhoods was the majority. Then we had a few accounts, you know, Bloom and, you know, a few of the distributors, of course, Arango. We go back to Arango since my grandfather with Jose Arango, but in Chicago. But Fred was the one that started going from smoke shop to smoke shop and started taking me around. Fred Zanaboni, he was very good friends with Sal Fontana. I mean, and they were like, but I mean, they were brothers, man. But I never seen two people love each other as much and yet hate each other as much. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing, you know. It's like you hear the stories about these big wrestlers and everything killing each other in the round and everything, and then they take a shower and having beers together, talking about their family and kids. That was Sal Fontana. Sal Fontana was just one of those incredible personalities, great guy, beautiful family. And I remember one day there was a company in Chicago called E.A. Carey. Now, I'm sure George Brightman is listening. And there's no way that George Brightman would have ever heard of an E.A. Carey if he was someplace in Washington, D.C. or somewhere. But I'm sure George knows E.A. Carey. It was a big mail order company. And Fred says, oh, we got to see these people, man. We'll be able to sell them a lot of curly heads and all this like that. And I remember we set an appointment. I'm nervous as hell. And, you know, the buyer was a young guy, but I'm still nervous. I'm walking into the big office building and this and that. And I'm not a salesman or, you know, I'm not used. I was really nervous. I was frightened. And there's George. Yeah. Ha, 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 you bet. Hey, we should call this, we should nail the Pope. We should call this nail the professor. We should put this nail the Pope. Nobody ever get a bobblehead. There you go, Georgie boy. But I remember we walk in to E.A. Carey and we're sitting down in the waiting room. And before you know it, Sal Fontana comes out of the buyer's office and he says, Fred says, that son of a bitch, he must be spying on me. He's doing everything that we're doing. He must be spying on me. He got here before me, you know, to that. I never forget that story, man. Sal Fontana. He was good at what he did. He was the best. Yeah, there was a lot of characters. And, you know, this show is about, you know, spreading the love. And I mean, that's what we talked about in the beginning, the philosophy behind the show. It's not about, you know, promoting cigars or any one brand, but it's about people, you know, it's about people. But we're supposed to bring entertainment and, you know, to others and a little knowledge of history and everything, since we are the old timers today. Before I was a baby in the business, I was the youngest. Now I'm getting up there. Now I'm becoming the Alphonse Meyer and everything and getting grouchy and all that crap. But you know, but the thing is that I'm enjoying this so much. I mean, I'm enjoying this, just talking about people like, you know, Sherwin Seltzer and everything, and then seeing the Pope pop in every once in a while on my screen and everything, you know, endorsing what we said or correcting when we're wrong. You know, we got to have him permanently on the show, man. And he's an amazing. I said it. He was nicknamed the Pope by our best friend, our dear friend, Enrico Barone, because George always knew everything about everything. So thank you, George, for that.
This is incredible. I mean, I think all of you can witness that, you know, this was supposed to be a exclusive guest of honor, Benjamin Menendez show. And ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing history here. You're witnessing a bunch of guys from the industry talking, giving their hearts, pouring their hearts out. And this is going to go down in history just as much as any of the other shows. Professor.
I'm going to throw out a name. I would only see him at the show. And I know that one day at one of the RTVAs,
I don't mean to interrupt. George, Pope, Mr. Pope, don't go away just in case I need your help. Just shoot it on the screen. Go on, Professor. Continue.
Well, this one I think has to do with George Brightman, because I think it was George Brightman who told me this story. So I'm going to mention a man, that I only had 2 encounters with him. It was at the show, and actually it was with Benji Menendez. One that is not with us, but he was a character in his own way. Don Rolando Reyes in Honduras, Puros Indio. What a character.
what a character and what a great cigar maker, tobacco man. Great. He made the most beautiful cigars I think I've ever, seen. They look like candles, to be honest. They look like a wax candle. They look so beautiful. He was very kind and close to my father. Many times, I have a lot of experiences with him, a lot of memories. Rolando Sr. was some character. He was known to be a character. George will tell you, hey, Benjamin!
Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey!
Mr. Benji Menendez.
Por fin
Maybe we'll
logré,
have him on for 2 weeks. That would be even special, better.
por
I
fin
thought I
logré
just saw
llegar.
him.
Benji, welcome to the show. Can you hear us?
Thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be with you guys.
Oh, it's nice to see
great
you.
to be
Benjamin,
with
un
you.
abrazo, mi hermano. Big hug, sir.
Well,
Carlito, ¿a ti qué te voy a decir?
Benji Menendez is with us. The show is going on. Benji, welcome. We have very little time left, but we want to hear as much as humanly possible, and we will get you on the show, hopefully next week again. Benji, can you please introduce yourself to the public?
My name is Benjamin Menendez, and I'm an old guy. And it's a good thing that you can't really see me too much, because my hair is just like a wild Mustang. It's so bad that I cannot get a haircut in Miami. Everything is closed down. In Miami-Dade, maybe other parts of the states are open. But I have enjoyed for 62 years of my life the tobacco business. And it is very, very difficult for me to really get away from it, although today I am totally away from it. I only talk to you guys, but I don't participate in anything. Today I have a privilege, which is to be able to smoke and judge cigars without being pressed in any way, shape, or form on being a part of a company. So today I can express myself very openly and enjoy many cigars that I have smoked, and especially since I retired in 2014. I've been smoking cigars everywhere. I mean, you name the manufacturer, I've tried it. Some of them I love them, some of them I hate them, but I've smoked them. And there is one cigar, and I'm glad, Carlito, that you're sitting there, because there is one cigar I like your Opus X very much, but more than your Opus X, I like the Don Carlos. I think that was a cigar which was very, very special in the marketplace. Today, as I said, I'm out of the market, so I don't know what cigars are available. I smoked Padron, I smoked Perdomo, I smoked General, I smoked Altavis, I smoked Fuente, Lito. I have smoked all sorts of cigars that I can get my hands on, and I have enjoyed them. And I really thank you, all you guys who make cigars, for producing such good cigars. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Benji. But Benji, listen, I mean, it's a privilege for us to have you on the show. You're considered by most to be one of the last living legends of our industry. And you've had probably one of the most difficult and challenging lives. Your stories is absolutely incredible. Could you please tell us a little bit about your days in Cuba and your exodus from Cuba, so that people understand what you actually went through?
Well, I started in the cigar factory, although I called 52 as my starting date. Actually, My starting date was 51 because that's when the machines were installed in Cuba for the first time. And we had all these American mechanics and ladies teaching our people how to make cigars by machine. And they all came from Tampa, which is a great thing. I was able to enjoy the company of many people, which I enjoyed tremendously. But I started the factory really in 52. And the thing was that in 52, they had the Olympics in Helsinki, in Finland. And my father went to see the Olympics, which he had never seen before, and he went there. And when he came back, and it was July, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing much. I'm going out with the guys. I'm going out to the beach." So he said, "How about working?" I said, "Well," so I said, "Okay, next Monday, you start in the factory." And that's how I started. But then and this was July, and in September, I started the university. So on my first year, I had to go to the university in the afternoon and worked in the factory in the morning. And that went on for 2 years. On the second year, actually, I had subjects that were on the afternoon, subjects that were in the morning. So I skipped around, sometimes going in the morning, sometimes going in the afternoon. But then on the third year, my elder brother and myself went to see my father and said, "Dad, we need money. We need money because, you know, a lot of people expect a lot of things from us, which we cannot afford." So he said, "Well, you want money? Fine, work more." So how can we do that? I said, "Well, you can work in the factory all day and you go to the university at night." I said, "Great, we'll take that." I said, "One condition, if you fail one subject, the deal is off." And I'm glad to say I graduated as a bachelor in economics and did not fail one subject in this whole years of the university. I even started trying to go for the master's or the doctorate in economics, but then Fidel Castro came along, took over the university, and that was it. So first I left Cuba and came to Miami. And in Miami, the first month or so, I was just doing things, errands for the family. But then the people from Philip Morris, Joe Kuhlman III, asked my father, "What are you boys doing?" He said, "Well, they're just hanging around." And said, "Let's get them to work." So we got jobs in Philip Morris, and the first and only time in my life that I have worked in sales has been that time in Miami. I'm not a good salesman, not by a long shot, but it was a good training. And it taught me a lot of things in the business, and I really appreciate the people in Philip Morris who taught me the etiquette of going into a store and handling people. A lot of things that are today are forgotten.
Yeah.
Again, I'm talking, this was back in 1961, and now we're in 2004, 2020. That's a long time ago. So a lot of things have been lost. And sometimes when I was with General Cigar, I went to some places and I saw our salespeople go in with a polo shirt. I said, "My God, I was not allowed to do that." In Philip Morris, we had to wear a coat and tie. Well, not a coat really, because Miami was pretty hot. But we had to wear a collar and a tie And another funny thing, we had to wear a hat. And believe me, I never wore a hat. So I kept it always in the car. And just in case some of the brass came around, I would put it on. But I had a good time. I can always remember all the good friends I had in my life. And that is one thing that will never be forgotten. You know, I went through some hard times, yes. I remember being in New York, and, you know, a bottle of rum would cost $1. And we would spend $1, all the friends putting in 5 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents, till we finally got $1. And we would drink that bottle for one weekend. That was not what I was accustomed to from Cuba. Cuba, we had a much easier life, but here we had to go a different way. And then I spent 7 months in American Machine and Foundry, learning cigar machines, which were really something what we thought was going to be the future of the industry because of the cost associated with it. What we didn't count on, and again, going back to Cuba, and Cuba had the same minimum wages as the United States, and the Cuban dollar was equivalent $1 to 1 Cuban peso, which made our cigars quite expensive. Besides that, you have to go back to the time when the United States, even though was not talking about being in any way restrictive, but we had taxes, we had duties, we had payments that Tampa did not have. And Tampa was making very good cigars and a whole number of cigars that Cuba couldn't actually compete with. And when you see the total amount of Cuban cigars exported from Cuba to the United States, and you were talking about 30 million cigars a year. Compare that today to Dominica and Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Ecuador, all these countries that are producing cigars, and they are producing hundreds of millions where Cuba was not able to produce that. Again, there are a lot of things that you have to look at the time. And the United States was, okay, a good country, a good economy, and it was living good. But the thing was that Europe was after the war, and Europe was destroyed by the war. Guys, can you see? Okay, now I can see you. It's a beautiful young lady that I can see.
Oh, great.
Before that was Carlito, which, okay, I'll accept, but it's not my type.
I can see that Mr. Menendez is very young at heart here.
Well, I can tell you, after being in the States for a while, I went to Canary Islands. And we started Canary Islands, and it was a really success story because Canary Islands was something that we started the factory there with 4 cigar rollers. And 4, I mean 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. When I left the company in '77, we had in the factory over 750 people. And we were a very, very large part of the sales of premium cigars in the United States. This is something that I decided I was going, and I was offered a good opportunity in Brazil But Brazil was not in the best situations economically. The inflation rate was huge. We talk about inflation rate in Latin America, and Brazil was huge inflation rate. And things were not working out. And at one time, Edgar Jr., Ted Brockman, Alphonse Meyer came to Brazil, and we started talking. One thing led to another. In February, I was going to New York and started with General Cigar in Canary Islands and Jamaica. And it was a good opportunity to learn to live a new world. You see, back in Cuba, the way we put together the cigars, the blends, we would buy individual farms, Vegas, and we, in the factories, would blend those Vegas. When we came out into exile, we were no longer buying Vegas. We were already buying lots of tobacco, which was meaning that the people who were processing the tobacco, the leaves of tobacco, were actually making our blends for us. Not a good thing. But okay, I wanted to go back to the origins. And that's why I started with Brazil. But then Brazil didn't prove too good. So I came back to Miami. And in my time in Miami was the only time in my life that I was unemployed. And I had left Brazil, and for a while I was unemployed. And then Edgar Coleman Sr. called me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing much. Well, come up to New York, we'll talk about it." We did. And that's when I really joined General Cigar. And I was with General until 97. In 97, I left again General Cigar and went to work with Tabacalera of Spain. And was there with a very good experience, meaning the experience of actually being the guy in charge. It wasn't Spain, it wasn't anybody but me. So I had to really make it happen. And I'm very glad to say that we had a very, very good operation going. The brand Romeo and Julieta was unknown back then. Today, it is a known brand in the market. And it was started with that TND, Tabacalera Nacional Dominicana. But then again, I made another jump, and I went to work with General again. And this time it was a different thing. Even though I was CDVP of premium cigars, I was not working so much in the factory as I was working more with marketing of cigars and talking about cigars and talking about things that people really wanted to know. And in that respect, I think Cigar Aficionado had a very good push into the market to get people to really want to know more about the industry.
Definitely.
And
I was there.
Benji, you know who's online with us today? We have Mr. George Brightman with us online. Remember George Brightman?
Absolutely. He's unforgettable. He's unforgettable. I love
And
the guy.
George is asking so many questions and so many directions that I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to pull him on the show. George, careful, because we have about 2 minutes left. So one question, George, okay? Let me pull you on the show here. George, you're live. Here we go. Let's pull him on. All right, George, are you there?
I first met George when he was with Davidoff.
Where is George?
Got it?
Are you
George.
there? There you
Am
go.
I visible?
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
there you are.
Okay, sorry, I'm in my non-camera persona. So,
George,
so
George,
I
it
mean,
is so great. It's so great to see you.
brother, it's so
I
great to
really-
hear your voice and see you a little bit.
I'm really very, very, very pleased to see you and to know you're doing well.
Likewise, my friend. We probably both need a haircut and a shave, but it's all right. Listen, I want to ask you a question that goes back really, really far. And you touched on it briefly there for a minute. I really want to know, what was the first job that you had back in Havana in the factories that you really, first of all, that you recall that you liked? Not something you got stuck with doing, like your old man said, oh, you have to do this. What was the first thing you did?
Well, the first job I really did was with the machines, working with the mechanics and with the ladies that were in there to teach our girls. That was my first job, was translating for the mechanics to the girls that are working the machines. And then because they were stumped because of political things, then I was sent up to the cigar galera, to the galera, which is where the cigars were being rolled. And that was the rest of my job for that year until I went back to school. But that was the first job. Then when I came back, I went back to looking at the cigars, which I had learned about the cigar making in handmade cigars, and tried to apply it to the machine-made cigars. And then from the machines, I went to the selecting of cigars, color, packing, went to wrapper selecting. I went through all the departments in the factory until I finally had to come out of Cuba. So that was my first job, was really mechanical job. But I can remember some of the guys that were in Cuba, and I really love them all. But I have a special one that I really cannot stop talking without mentioning his name. Emilio Seijas. Carlitos, you probably know him.
Yeah, of course, Benji, of course. Emilio, Angie.
I talk about him, and I talk about your father, and I get goosebumps. Would you believe it? Honest to God,
Yes,
I get goosebumps.
Yeah, Emilio was very close
They
to
were-
us all.
They were so special people. And I can talk about Emilio. And his second daughter was born while he was still with me in Canary Islands setting up the machinery.
yeah.
And the things we had to go through. Because don't forget, Spain was not in very good condition economically. And the cables that we use for electricity were just about like telephone cables. They were very thin and very easily to break. So he was there with me. But I have to mention your father, Carlito. And he is one of the special guys that I have met in my life. I was setting up the factory in Brazil. And I had been with Emilio with by Emilio, and not with Emilio, but by Emilio, in touch with American Machine and Foundry to ordering machines to be sent to Brazil. And it was like gonna be like 6 months without the machinery. And I went to Tampa and I had to see Carlito. And I said, when are your machines gotta be there? In about 6 months. That's a long time for me. He said, what machines are you asking for? I told him the machines and the model parts and everything. I said, let me tell you, I'm gonna send you my machines. And when your machines are ready, they will come to me. You cannot imagine what that meant to me. And I can mention a lot of other things that Carlitos did to me, said to me, offered to me, and I just keep to myself. But hey, I'm getting off the track. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. And Benji, that's very, very beautiful. Cynthia Fuente, who sends her love, says that she's still in touch with his wife, Angie. And
Angie.
she says that she...
I love Angie.
Yeah,
I love Angie.
Yeah, and Cynthia,
I'm sorry.
Cynthia helps take care of her. And she talks about, Angie talks about Emilio very, very often and all the old stories. And Cynthia and Liana Fuente send their love.
I really appreciate it.
George, thank you very much, sir.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Bring him back.
George,
Yeah,
great
he'll
to
be
see
back
you.
next week, hopefully.
Benji,
Great to see you all.
we were talking about all of the old school tobacco guys. We were talking about one in particular who you knew very well, and we'd like you to tell a little bit about him. His name was Alphonse Meyer. Tell us about Alphonse, Benji.
Let me tell you about Alphonse. Alphonse and I were very good friends, but at some point in time, we had great discussions. I love him. I love his memory. And I think he was one of the great guys in the tobacco business. He knew how to handle tobacco. And even though I had some discrepancies with him, I still follow his instructions because he was the one who knew what it was really like.
Benji, did anybody not have an argument with with him?
Alphonse was a great guy. Like I'm telling you, we had a lot of fun, and we did a lot of work together, putting blends together. Let me tell you one thing. Alphonse was the tobacco buyer for General Cigar.
I remember very well. And to tell you, he had a very similar character to my grandfather, Heller, which I think you knew very well.
Yes. But this was the old people. Let me tell you, I'm a dinosaur. And I use the dinosaur as my emblem. Because I am one of the oldest guys in the industry. And I know I don't have a lot of time left, but what I love most is to share whatever knowledge I have, whatever experience I have with the younger generation. I said many times, whatever I can give you, it's yours. Because one of these days, they're gonna burn me. And all that knowledge and experience that I may have, which I don't think is a hell of a lot, but it's got to be burned. So if I can give it to you, I'm very, very willing and eager to do so.
Well, thank you very much.
Benji, you are my hero, and you're many people's hero. And I will personally be so blessed if you will accept our invitation and come back next week. There's so many things, Benji, that I would love you to share with us. I remember when you were in the Canary Islands, you know, you mentioned that so briefly, you know, all your struggles and everything, but you didn't mention you built some of the greatest brands in the 70s in the Canary Islands. I mean, you had tremendous success. They were the most sought after brands, the most prestigious brands. I mean, there's so many things that I would love the world to hear and to have it in memory and for you to share with us. I mean, you're a man that knows every rapper. You have experience with everything. And you're exactly as you described yourself. You're a mentor and you're a professor to all of us. There was never one time that I had the blessing, the privilege to sit next to you that you weren't teaching, that you weren't sharing a story or giving a good example of life. And one of the things that I repeat often, and one of the things that you told me and my father, and when Benji or Benjamin refers to Carlito, he was referring to my father in Tampa because my father was known to Carlito to all who loved him.
I refer to him as Carlito.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
But, yeah, no, but one of the things that, no, that's the way. He was Carlito. He was Carlito to my grandmother, Carlito to everybody who knew him, to all the people in Tampa. He was Carlito. I was, no one knew me. I became Carlito when I came to the Dominican Republic practically. So they could distinguish me from my father. But one of the things that I do remember, Benji, that I'll never forget, and I tell my children, you know, I tell them over and over, and I tell my children, to me, the most important thing in my life is the succession of our family business in honor of the struggles that my grandfather, my grandmother went through, you know, my aunts and my uncles and all those people in Ybor City, you know, those chinchales, and the community and the love for each other, how they would share things like you mentioned, my father with the machinery, and Emilio, everybody would share and help each other out. But one thing that you told me in front of my father, I remember one day we were all sitting together and you said, Carlitos and the cigar business, the premium cigar business belongs to family. It's a family business. And I don't know if you remember those words. You said you have to feel it. You have to paint it. It's got to be something you're passionate. You got to love it. It's got to be part of you. The cigar business belongs in families. Do you remember that?
Yes, because you know, I am not intelligent enough to know that, but I had a guy who taught me that, and that guy was Emilio Seijas.
Wow.
And the thing was that I was talking with Emilio when a Gulf and Western bought Insular Tabacalera, and I was talking to him. I said, Emilio, you imagine with all the money these people have, what they can do with this company. They can really blow it. I said, Benji, you're wrong, totally wrong. The premium cigar business is a family enterprise. When you talk about mass market, okay, that's their business. That's corporation. But premium cigars, that's family. I have to say this, you look around today, and where are the factories that are growing? More, less, but growing. And they are the family companies. And that's why I love family companies. I had to live my life in corporate. In family companies have good things and have bad things. I agree with that. But my friend, family companies is a permanent thing. Corporations, they come and go. Mr. Meerapfel was just talking about Alphonse Meyer. Alphonse Meyer is gone. Who is in charge of tobacco buying in General Cigar? I don't have the slightest idea. Who is in charge of tobacco? I don't know. Again, I am out. I am not in the information of everything, but they are. Where is Edgar Coleman Sr.? He's gone. General Cigar is a different company.
That was a family company, as big as General Cigar, the Colemans were, and everything. It was still run with their heart and soul. Edgar was such a tobacco man. I mean, it was about quality for him, and it was family. And you're absolutely right. And everybody who worked there is part of the family. I still see Paulino walking down the free zone, going to see Ángel Núñez, and Paulino is still getting around with his presidente. And I'm so happy to see him smoking his cigar. But these are people that were family. They gave their lives for the company. And this is the way we were taught. We were old school, that the people who are your co-workers are an extension of your family. And this comes back from the old days. We're all family.
This is the thing that makes the company. It's the people. It is not the name of the company. It's not, because in corporations, people come and go. And today you may be the president of the company. Tomorrow you're nothing. You're fired. Or a vice president. Or you're nobody. But in a company, it's your heart that's there. And you're working for your heart, for your family, you see, and I say this a lot of times, when you talk to a family company and you say, we made $1 million this year, boy, that we made money. You talk to a corporation, we made $1 million this year. Oh, that's bull stuff. Means nothing to them. But to us, that every penny on every dollar, it has love attached to it that you cannot change. And I don't care how big in the corporation you are, you will never reach that point of love, because you have to produce. And if you don't produce, you're fired. You're out. That's the difference.
Let me, I want to say something. First of all, my wife sends to Benji a big hug, a big abrazo. Benji was one of her first mentors when she started to work at General Cigars at her sweetest match.
No. He was my #1 best mentor, including you, Jose.
And
I love you, baby.
And he was a great.
I love you too, and I miss you so much.
And he was a great mentor for me too, and we spent a lot of time together in Miami. And I agree, you have to come back, Uncle Benji, because I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. So we need you for Fuente Friday. Next Friday, we're going to get everything going, because we need to hear more from you, because I think our industry needs to know about who Benji Menendez was, his family, and the perspective you have about premium cigars. You've been a mentor.
So, Benji, we talk about you a lot, Jose and I.
And
you mean very much to us.
And let me say this, Jose, you know where my house is in Miami.
Of course.
And I say a very sketchy phrase, my house is your house. Not only yours, but hers also.
Yes.
All right.
And yours also.
I have to go with Jasper.
Mr. Menendez.
And yours also. My house is your house. Come here. We'll be very, very eager to see you here. Have a drink together and enjoy life, even if it's only a few minutes. But come, we want you here.
Thank you.
We can talk. And Carlitos, I know you're a very busy man. I just jump over. But
te quiero mucho, Benji. Te quiero.
We love you.
Te admiro y te quiero. A ti, Margarita, por tu familia.
Carlitos, te voy a decir una cosa a ti. Te lo voy a decir en español porque el resto no entiende lo que te digo. Yo rezo por ti todas las noches. Por ti, por Cynthia y por Ricky.
Gracias, mi hermano.
Por
Gracias.
los tres.
Que Dios te bendiga.
Por los tres y por vuestra familia, yo rezo todas las noches. porque los quiero mucho, les tengo un aprecio enorme y felizmente no estamos tan juntos como podíamos estar, pero I love you guys.
Thank you, Uncle Benji.
Y yo
Ladies
también a ti.
Los veo el
and
viernes.
gentlemen,
We'll see you
Mr.
next Friday, my friend.
Benji Menendez. Benji, everybody would like you back on the show next Friday. Everybody is begging you. Will you grant us this honor and be with us next week for Fuente Friday? Will you be with us?
God permitting, I'll be here.
You'll
All
be
right.
here,
To be with you
absolutely.
guys.
You heard it from
Tobacco
the
is-
mouth of
Tobacco, I love to talk about tobacco.
Mr. Benjamin Menendez will be back with us next week on Fuente Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, we have blown the time out of the water, but it is custom on Fuente and Meerapfel present Meet the Professor to finish with Benoit's Baked. Benoit, go easy on us today, and then we're going to have to see you next Tuesday.
But here
Okay.
is the house. You're welcome to it.
Gracias,
Come
buen
around.
amigo. Igualmente, gracias.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
I'm
guys.
good. Hello, everybody. Happy Fuente Friday to everyone.
Happy
Happy
Fuente, Benoit.
Happy 40 Friday, Benoit.
Nice to see you and nice to hear you, Mr. Menendez. I'm very touched and very impressed about your stories.
Let me say something to
Really,
you.
really.
Let me say something to you.
Yes.
I am Benji. I'm not
Benji.
Mr. Menendez. Mr. Menendez is
Thank
somebody.
you, Benji. Thank
way
you
Hey,
so
above.
much.
Benji,
Thank
don't
you.
talk too quickly. After
And
the
when you
joke,
talk
you
about
might
Mr.
ask him.
Menendez,
You might ask him
you
to
might
call
be
you
talking
Mr.
about my
Menendez
father.
after this.
Maybe well, maybe well.
All right,
It's
go
not
ahead,
Mr.
Benoit.
Menendez.
Let's do this.
Okay, so it's two Belgian guys go in France to ski. So they go to the desk and ask to have two pass and a teacher, a ski teacher, but the same than the last year. So the girl on the desk say, okay, may I have the name of your teacher? Oh yes, he called Michel. Michel. There is a lot of people, a lot of ski teacher named Michel. Do you have his last name of a sign? I don't know what the last name is, but I can tell you something. Michel has two anus. Two anus? How do you know that? But we never see it. But each time when you meet a colleague, he say, "Hey, Michel, how are you doing with your two asshole?"
That's a good one.
All right, thank you very
so
much.
much. Happy
Okay,
Fuente
guys.
Friday to everybody. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
See
and
you
see
Friday.
Tuesday.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy Fuente Friday. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Mr. Menendez, Benji, thank you so much. It was an amazing show. I see here that Liana Fuente is sending you her love. Cynthia, the entire Fuente family. From the Meerapfel family, all our love. From Jose and his family, all the love. From our Melanie Cisco, all her love. And we will see you next Fuente Friday on Fuente and Meerapfel present Meet the Professor. In the meantime, we'll see the rest of you on Tuesday. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of others. And remember, all our love. Bye-bye for now. Have a nice weekend.
Love to you all. Thank you.
All our love.
Thank you.
Bye.
God permitting, I'll be here.
Queremos.
Bye.
Bye.